Welcome back to the Dirt Road. I'm here with Mr. Rick.
That's Michael. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, brother? Our dirt road farm you'll never find hidden in the city of New York.
But we can now call it our MAGA cult hideout, Mike. That's what I want to call it.
That's right. We got a MAGA cult hideout.
And by the way, we have to welcome a majority of Americans to our cult. A majority of Americans to our cult. Almost 51% of Americans decided to join our cult. Because we are in a cult, right? We can't think for ourselves. We only do what Donald Trump tells us to do.
51% of voting Americans. Yeah, it's huge numbers. Massive turnout in ways that were definitely not expected, and the pollsters definitely didn't account for.
So apparently 46% of American women are misogynists.
Well, that sounds about right.
Right?
Yeah, I would actually agree with that.
And approximately 45% of Hispanics and almost 14% of blacks are white supremacists.
Again, not surprising.
Has to be, right? I mean,
It makes sense,
that is the cult. That is what we've been told. And a majority of Americans just voted for a Hitler wannabe. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, I know. The Hitler wannabe that isn't the one conducting lawfare or any of the other kind of Hitler-esque type things, censorship at a massive level.
But it is amazing. And by the way, I want, what we should do? I think the newest members to our cult should be the one to offer Liz Cheney a blindfold and a cigarette.
Yeah.
Remember, she's supposed to be facing a firing squad, right?
She's going to send her to a firing squad.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Listen.
Mike, that was did you read the actual thing that he said?
Because I saw what he actually said.
How many people go in front of a firing squad and you hand them a rifle? Because he said, hand her a rifle
and let her go fight
and see how the
wars that she's advocating for.
Called her exactly what she is, a chicken hawk.
Exactly. She's a warmongering psychopath.
She's a chicken hawk. She's one of those people who wants war as long as it's other people's, as long as it's you going and not her.
Right. Well, exactly. They want everybody else, your sons and daughters, to go fight while they sit back and collect all the money from, producing all the munitions and everything else for it.
So they, Mike,
awful.
He overcame, and in a sense we did, by extension, right? Overcame this absolute bullshit that they've been spewing on this man for 9 years.
Yeah.
And he got slightly more, not a whole lot more than he did in 2020. And in 2020, he got a whole lot more votes than he did in 2016. Yeah. So the more they go after him, it really is amazing. It's just such an incredible political story. Once the people alive now are dead and gone, and people write about this in the future without that emotion, this is going to be considered one of the biggest political comebacks.
Oh, without a doubt.
Biggest political accomplishments in American history.
Listen, he changed the entire electorate. He really did. He drew the entire electorate right. But beyond the partisanship of it all, this is somebody who just basically proved that the entire system is corrupted and working against regular people, and that regular people are finally starting to understand that's very much true. Him being indicted so many times for lawfare cases, I think is what really truly brought a big chunk of Americans to his side. They finally realized, oh wow, this guy really is being victimized at every level. They are really actually trying to destroy this man and bankrupt this man for no other reason than politics.
Yeah. And listen, what's going on in other people's heads, I don't know, but obviously, people didn't fall for that. Just a convicted felon thing. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's a wannabe dictator. And maybe they just, maybe they overplayed their hand. I mean,
sure.
At some point there's saturation, right? You hear the same song over and over again, you tend to tune it out.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So 9 years of this, the same thing over and over again. He's a felon. He's a this. He's a that. Well, listen, dude's a badass. I don't, whether you like him or not, they tried to break this guy financially.
Yep.
They tried to destroy his life. They tried to throw him in jail. There was a legitimate shot fired at him.
Shot him in the ear. Yeah, shot him right through the ear.
And he was impeached twice and faces a hostile media, faces a hostile entertainment industry and culture, and still overcomes with a majority.
Yeah. And now we have a bunch of women in the so-called 4B movement running around shaking their heads, claiming they're not going to have sex with anybody so they don't get pregnant.
Yeah, they weren't having sex anyway.
So even if they were, I'm glad they're not now, okay? Because, this is how you cleanse the gene pool, folks. This is how you cleanse the gene pool. Like, just stop. Just stop at the virtue signaling. Stop.
Exactly.
The legitimate 4B movement is a legitimate movement. It's women in these countries where they are very much oppressed. Afghanistan, we're not even allowed to speak out loud to each other. Places like Iran where they'll be stoned to death, hung from cranes, things like that for daring to, not wear a burqa or their headdress. These things these are legitimately oppressed women in the world that are part of that movement. And here it's being co-opted by the lunatics on the left here in America. Like, stop your virtue signaling nonsense. Just friggin' stop. Just stop.
Right. And all these people saying that, we're going back in time. We're rolling things back. These are the bad old days. Ben Shapiro was on Bill Maher's podcast about a day or two ago. And he had a great saying. He said, we literally on Earth do have a time machine. He said it's called an airplane. He said you can fly to many different areas of this world and go back to the Stone Age if you want. Yeah. And you could see what real oppression is, what real dictatorship is, what real misogyny is, what real racism is. There's many places on Earth you could go. I thought it was just a classic Ben Shapiro line, We do have a time machine. It's called an airplane. Go check it out. Go fly to one of these other countries and see what it's really. Listen, you saw it firsthand. Yeah. You were in the Stone Age. You were in Afghanistan.
It's in a lot of places. Look, the reality is this, right? All of you on social media or wherever else you are posting your narcissistic, screaming fest of anger and hate and fear where, our rights are being stolen from us. Well, first of all, your rights end when they infringe upon the rights of another. That is the basis of our entire culture here. That is the absolute basis of the Constitution. Your rights end when they infringe upon the rights of another. That baby inside your stomach is another. Okay, so your rights end at the point where you're murdering that child. Point blank, that's it. There's no questions about that. You can argue it all you want. I'm not going to agree with you. You're wrong. That said, you can go on any social media platform you want and scream all you want about your rights being stolen from you. Like somehow we're going to force you to marry some guy and be his, wife and do all his laundry and cook his food. No, you can choose any life you want in this country. The fact that you've chosen to be mentally ill and display it for all the world to see on social media is proof exactly of that. So by all means, keep doing that. Keep broadcasting yourselves, paint yourselves, do all those things, shave your head. Make it easy for American men to pick out who the crazies are so they can actually find decent wives and actually build a decent country again.
Look, we saw this after 2016, right? And I actually think it's less now because I think it's all played out. But remember, in 2016, you had the Women's March, so-called Women's March, the day after the inauguration. Everybody walking around with the pussy hats.
Pussy hats. It's the stupidest thing I ever saw.
I think it's kind of tamped down a little bit now. I think it's played out. I think people realize how silly it is.
It's grow up. Just grow up.
But Mike, and by the way, we're a little late to this party. We're filming this 6 days, 5 days, 5 days after Election Day. We had some technical difficulties. So in the last 5 days, it is actually pretty good because in the last 5 days, we've heard and read tons of people who have, quote unquote, analyzed this election and got it figured out and the so-called autopsy for the Democratic Party and all of that. So let me start by just asking you.
Yeah.
Why'd she lose?
Oh,
because this seems to be the question in every newspaper, on every television show. Why did Kamala Harris lose?
Well, I think there's a number of factors that play into it. But realistically, if I'm picking out a couple of things, and one thing that stands out prominent to me is Democrat apathy. Democrats can come out and vote the way they normally would, even if you look at the numbers. Yeah,
she got about 70 million so far. They're still counting. Biden had what, 82?
Something like that. Yeah, there's still,
I have my own theory about that, but what's yours?
I think apathy was a big part of it because look, at the end of the day, she came out strong in her campaign. She got the media on her side right away. Obviously, they always favor her side anyway, but they came out strong for her. They tried to showcase her strengths. They tried to showcase why she's the better pick than, she had to step in for Biden because of his mental problems or his, I guess his cognitive disorder. So she steps in. They give her pretty much an open playing field. All she had to do was run the ball, and she couldn't. And running the ball for her was simple, get out and just make appearances at first, right? And she did that at first, and it was going okay. But then there's a point where you have to pivot, you have to transition, you have to be able to say, okay, here's my policies, here's what I'm advocating for, here's why I'm different than the guy that I'm running, that was running just up until a couple of days ago. And she never did that. She never pivoted. She never actually brought out her policies. She never actually brought out anything that really made sense to people. And she definitely didn't come back to anything that, to challenge anything that that Trump was putting out there that he was going to advocate for, the policies he was going to do. He was very policy heavy this campaign, and she wasn't. And then the interviews for her, she just wasn't prepared. She just wasn't prepared. She couldn't answer basic questions, even about her own policy. She couldn't get away from being so closely tied to the Biden administration, although her campaign staff did a good job of giving her that latitude, that leeway to break her free of it.
Yeah,
I just couldn't quite bring it home for them,
So I'm only going to say this because you just brought that up. This is not actually part of my real theory about this. But as far as her not breaking away from Biden, I think that was a problem too. And I think she had an opportunity where she actually could have, and it's funny because I thought of this, believe it or not, when Eminem endorsed her. And I don't know if you know, but there's an expression with Eminem, it's called 8-miling somebody. And it was from the end of the movie 8 Mile when he was having the battle raps.
Yeah.
And in the last battle rap, when he was going up against Papa Doc, he said, in his, I don't remember the exact words, but he said everything about himself that could possibly be said. So he said, that's right, I am white trash. I do live in a trailer with my mom. My friend did screw my girlfriend and they did beat me up and I'm still staying. So he took all the ammunition away from the other guys. So then when they handed Papa Doc the microphone and started the beat, he had nothing to say.
Yeah, because Eminem sales, yeah.
Right. And I think Kamala Harris should have 8-miled her own administration because she could have just said, this administration screwed things up. We let way too many people in. We let the inflation get way too high. And she should have thrown Biden under the bus. She's got to try to win an election. I don't think it would have worked anyway, but she has to try to win an election, not be nice to him. And she could have said, listen, she could have even lied. She could have said, in my private conversations with him, because you can never disprove that, right? She could say, in my private conversations with him, I told him this is getting out of hand, but, I'm just the vice president. I can't really do anything about it. Elect me and I will. But she didn't. When they asked her on one of those shows, Mike, what would you do differently than Biden?
She said nothing.
She said nothing.
Yeah, that was a death blow.
Now, again, I don't know that that's the reason why she lost, because that whole framing of it in the media now, where they're trying to dissect it and why did she lose, that implies that this election was hers to lose, that for some reason she should have won the election, but did this, that, and this wrong, and therefore she didn't. And I think that's a wrong narrative.
Oh, without a doubt.
I honestly, the reason why she lost is because more people voted for Trump. It's as simple as that to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at him. But if you look at the last 4 years, right, we've had out of control inflation.
Right.
The economy is crap to bed.
Sure, we all know.
We've got, tremendous amounts of people that are unvetted, undocumented, and we have no idea who they are pouring across the border. And then those people are piling onto an already bad economy and taking that much more resources out of a local economy.
But she could have distanced herself from it because she
could have said, listen, we know these things are going on. We're aware of the problems and we're willing to go forward and say, listen, this is messed up and we can fix it. But I don't know if she has the capability to do something like that. I never saw in her any kind of moment where I felt like, okay, she could actually make that case or actually make that presentation or actually say those things honestly.
And that's why I don't think, everybody just keeps talking about what should she have done differently? What could she have done differently? And again, I don't like that narrative because it makes it seem like she should have won, but didn't. And I don't think that's the case. Actually, I think it was the other way around.
I think it was his to win or lose. Yeah, it was Trump's to lose without a doubt. Listen, he's a phenom, right? There's nobody like that guy. And you're running against a juggernaut. You really are. You're really running against a juggernaut, That's like me or you trying to win a race against Usain Bolt. Good luck. If the guy don't trip, you're screwed, Well,
look, he's obviously beatable, but he had the upper hand in this election, in my opinion, because, of two things. One, once Biden got pushed out, now he's the incumbent in a sense, right? Because he was president, and incumbents do tend to get reelected. He had a record to run on. So people could just look back 4 years and say, yeah, that was pretty good. Maybe we fucked up in 2020 and shouldn't have voted him out. Let's redo this now and take the opportunity to vote him back in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because once Biden was gone, Trump was the only president in the race.
Well, there was definitely buyer's remorse for some people. That's 100%. You see it in the numbers. If you look at the dissected numbers after this race, you'll see the buyer's remorse was definitely there. But I think his messaging was just on point
100%.
throughout, just on point.
This was the
did
best
not-
campaign he ran.
Oh, without a doubt, hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. Tremendously better than 2020.
Yeah.
You know?
The garbage truck thing. We said that in our last video.
Troll, best troll ever.
Agreed. Right. He took something that could have been a negative. I don't think it would have made that much of a difference, but it could have been a negative.
It was an 8 Mile
turned
kind of
it-
moment. He took ammunition away from them.
Yeah.
The garbage thing and made it his own.
Right. So, all right, I'm garbage. Here's my garbage truck.
And then what'd you have? You had poll workers that I know personally telling me that people were showing up en masse to these polling stations to vote, you know, separate from each other, wearing garbage bags.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was hysterical, but
And
it
that's-
tells you where the electorate was.
And it does. It does. And that, again, you know, the reason why she lost is because he won. And that's as simple. I know that
Yeah.
almost sounds like
Yeah.
a cop out, but I don't
it's-
think
but it's
there's any
true.
need to overanalyze it.
I don't think so either.
Americans understood. We've never had a candidate who we've known more about than Donald Trump.
Without a doubt.
Right? Good, bad, flaws, good thing, whatever it is.
Without a doubt.
And Americans made a choice, and it was across the board. No, he did not win a majority of blacks or a majority of Hispanics, but he cut into those leads that Democrats have held for years.
Yeah.
You know, cut into that. So he did get a good chunk of African American men voting for him. He did get a good chunk of Latinos.
Way more than they expected.
Yeah. He got, you know, everybody talks about how women hate him and women are going to come out. He got 46% of
Some
the
of the
women.
women voted for him.
Right. It's not like he got 8%. You know,
No,
he got 46%. So I think this was a good race overall, but there are some things, and there's a lot of introspection going on among the smart people on the left, not the jerk-offs like Joe Scarborough and people like that, but the actual smart ones, right? And I was reading Maureen Dowd's column, who is no Trump supporter,
No.
today in the Times, and she quotes Rahm Emanuel, and I thought this was really interesting because Rahm Emanuel, for those of you who don't remember, he was Obama's chief of staff for a while. He's a Chicago politician, smart guy, and a good Democratic operative, and he knows politics.
No, he knows lay the land.
He knows politics. And Maureen Dowd, right off the bat, was talking about how just things like she brings up. She says forcing people to use words like Latinx and BIPOC and stuff like that was never going to work.
Yeah.
She said this alienated half the country or more, which is true. And again, this is from a very liberal person. And then she quoted Rahm Emanuel, who I thought this was a really good saying. Rahm Emanuel said, "When the woke police come at you, you don't even get your Miranda rights read to you.
Yeah.
They just come after you and they get you." He said there were a lot of Democrats barking at people, and these Democrats don't represent anybody. I think he's talking about people like the Squad, and this was the point that really was. It says, and the leadership of the party was intimidated.
Well, yeah, it got hijacked by the far left of their party.
Yes.
They got hijacked. Yeah,
Right.
the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. The progressive wing of that party, legitimately, if you break down the numbers, the progressive wing of Democrats overall make up about 8% of that party.
But I think Rahm Emanuel's right. They intimidate the leadership to the point where the
Because
leadership
they're allowed to
won't speak up.
Because they're the loudest ones. They're the ones willing to go out and do these BLM marches. They're the ones willing to go out and make these big demonstrations and show a force. They're the same ones on social media doing the crying videos because Trump won, the screaming videos. You know, they're very, very vocal, loud.
But if the
Piece of the
Democratic
electorate.
Party wants to have elections won in the future, they got to get rid of these people. They have
You've got
to
to realize
shut them
that
up.
they can't. Yeah, they can't. You know, you can't cater to the far left of your party, or even the far right in the Republican Party. You know, where it amazes me they try and make MAGA out to be like the far right, when in reality MAGA is quite literally the centrist. You know, there's a reason so many independents and even Democrats swung for Trump this time, because they're looking at the policies and they're looking at the way things are being done. And they're realizing that, wait a minute, this is more of a centrist policy. When you bring on people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk and others into the party and create the Avengers team that he created for this election, I think that was a very, very clear signal to people across the country, across political aisles, that this is not about right, left. This is about actually restoring, a nation. And he made it very obvious. And I think for people who kind of find themselves in the center, where the center right, center left in politics, realize that this is actually about that. It's about what they care about. The 80% of the populace cares about the country being stable, being prosperous, and things moving forward.
And as much as they want to try to paint Trump as an ideologue or something, he's actually not. There's a guy, a professor from Princeton, his name is Robert George. He's very big in the pro-life movement and everything. He's a very smart guy, and he said it had to be very recently. It was in the last couple of days because I was just listening to it. He said Trump doesn't have beliefs; he has interests.
Sure.
And I thought that was a great way to put it, because when somebody has, and look, unfortunately, let me just give the reverses. You know, Trump did throw the pro-life movement under the bus in this election, right? I mean, he got it out of the party platform for the first time since Roe v. Wade. He really took almost all of the pro-life language out of the platform. You know, his only thing now is just to brag that he put the justices on the court that overturned Roe. But Trump was never, I know he said it, Trump's not pro-life. Trump, I don't think Trump cares. I think maybe he has an interest in that movement, not a belief. I think that professor was right. He's not hardline like me. You know, he's
not.
He wanted to win the election. He understood, because the man has tremendous political instincts. He's not the most talented politician ever. I still give that crown to Bill Clinton, but he's got the greatest instincts I've ever seen in a politician. And I think he realized that all this abortion stuff that the Democrats were making such a big deal out of, most Americans don't care one way or the other. No. I really don't think they do. Most Americans probably don't, agree with me and want it outlawed almost all the time. But by the same token, most Americans don't want abortion to be ubiquitous and want it, anywhere, anytime. And I just don't think a very large percentage of people vote on that issue.
No, not that many, not at all. Listen, I don't think that's the biggest issue facing the country, obviously, and I don't think anybody, or I should say, I don't think there's a lot of people out there who really do think it. When the Dobbs decision came down, right, I was talking to people on social media platforms across all the platforms, and people across the political aisle, people across the entire political spectrum about it. And kind of watching the responses and watching the thought process and watching what was being reported and being said, even the polling. And the vast, vast majority of people across the political spectrum were actually happy with the Dobbs decision because it returned it back to the states so they could decide for themselves in their state whether or not they felt like this was an appropriate thing or not.
I mean, I'm not one of those people.
They voted on it in this election, right? A bunch of states had proposals on the ballot.
And some states like Florida went for hardline anti-abortion, and
others went for more liberal.
I don't want to turn this into an abortion thing, but you know where I stand on that. I don't think something that's immoral should be left to the states. I think it should just be gone. But be that as it may, I'm in the distinct minority when it comes to that, and I understand that. But Trump had the political instincts to understand that this was not such a big issue. Kamala Harris tried to, she seemed to believe anyway, that this was something that was going to motivate and galvanize Democrats to come out and vote, and it just didn't. And I think Trump realized that this is not going to be a galvanizing thing. He avoided it. Yeah. They asked him, he says, well, it's back in the states where it belongs, what you said, and then just moved on. And I think that was a great move. He does have
he understands the electorate, yeah.
He really does. But we've seen a lot of things in this election, Mike, that are just fascinating. I brought it up when we were doing our prediction. I said, if those northern Midwestern states go red again, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, I think we now are entitled to call this a realignment.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, because this is 2 out of 3 elections that those states went red, and the third one was by a handful of votes.
Yeah.
Could have gone either way. So I think at this point, Democrats have to be worried that those 3 states are going to become, what's going to happen there is what happened to Ohio and Florida. Mike, it was only 3 elections ago that Ohio and Florida were
swing states. Yeah.
And now they've gotten redder and redder. And right now, Florida and Ohio are as red as North Dakota.
Well, I think what's happening, I think you're seeing a generational shift in politics. I think the country is moving, center right, honestly, whereas it was probably center left for a long time. I think the country's actually shifting back to a center right position on things. And they're realizing that the center right now is really the way forward. I mean, if you look at the Trump presidency, you have great contrast. You can look at Trump's presidency the first time, and you can look at Biden's presidency now and see the contrast: a world on fire versus a world at peace. Mm-hmm. A prosperous nation versus inflation and a collapsing economy. And the contrast couldn't be more stark. So I think that was kind of the last kind of fatal blow for the Democrat machine at this point, where you're going to see this generational shift where you're going to see those kind of. Be an uphill battle for a Democrat to get elected.
The only outstanding question, which we won't know until 2028, is was this about Trump?
Or was it just a generational
movement to the right? Because Trump is unique. Again, I don't consider Trump a right winger. by any
He's not.
stretch of
He's a
the
centrist.
imagination.
No, he's a centrist.
You know,
He's absolutely a centrist.
He's just a pragmatist. He just goes where he wants to go.
Because he uses common sense reasoning. He's like, okay, what's the most logical way forward? What makes the most sense, and how do we accomplish the goal we're trying to accomplish here? Yep. And he's going to find a way to do that. And that's. I mean, he's taking the same business acumen that made him billions of dollars and applying it to governance. Which
Yes.
obviously worked out very well because look where he is.
But look at what he's done, right? He's done something that no Republican has done in 40 years. He went into African American communities. He went into Latino communities. He spoke to people, union members. He spoke to people that Republicans like Mitt Romney and the supposed centrist John McCain, they never outreached to those types of
No,
people.
because those people weren't, they weren't interested in those people. They weren't representing them. They weren't going to make any policy that really helped them.
No.
And they didn't care about them. They cared about their donors, and they cared about, their forever wars and their other nonsense.
Well, Romney even said it when he was running. You remember it was a tape. I don't know if he knew he was being taped at the time. It wasn't anything disparaging, but he said the truth. He said 47% of this country is never going to vote for me no matter what I do. And that is the thinking that most politicians on both sides have, right? I mean, Biden did nothing to reach out to Republicans.
Yeah, they tend to go to their areas and their people and then hope they can rally enough of their base to come out and vote to overcome the other side.
But Trump did that. He went to his base, rallied his base,
And then he went out and
he also went out and tried to appeal to other people. And it's just an amazing accomplishment. And like I said, we won't know until 2028 if this is really a move to the right in America or if this was just a Trump, because nobody can be Trump. You can't be a mini Trump.
Somebody who deserves a shout out and just turns for recognition, and it kind of goes to my point in this whole thing.
Who's that?
Scott Pressler, right? So Scott Pressler flipped Pennsylvania. He registered more Republican voters there than anybody ever has anywhere. But the fact that he did register so many people Republican, and that you're seeing these Republican registration drives going on even here in New York, with people going out and registering Republicans in New York now and kind of copying that mold and going elsewhere and doing it. To me, that makes me think that this is a generational shift. That's kind of one of those little things I look at to say, okay, to me, it seems like a generational shift. I don't think it's just a Trump thing. Because I'm sure, there are plenty of people who come out and voted Trump that maybe are independent or even Democrat, but registering Republican and getting involved in the Republican cause, that's a shift. And to me, I see a lot of that, especially Pennsylvania, other states, are so-called swing states.
Yeah, but Mike, I have an opposite to that too, like North Carolina. Every single state election in North Carolina this year, the Democrat won except for Trump. So I don't know. It's kind of, I don't think we're going to really know until 2028. I hope you're right. I tend to think you're right. I just don't think we'll know until 2028. I also think it's, if Trump is
able. Tune in 28 and find out if I'm right.
I also think it's a matter of if Trump can deliver, which is going to be hard, and we're going to talk about that in our next video when we do our.
That's the other thing.
If he can actually deliver the things that he says he's going to deliver, then yeah, I do think that, whether it's J.D. Vance or wherever it is that he gets behind in 2028 would definitely have an upper hand. We do see, again, we see these three upper Midwestern states going right. So I do think you're right. I just don't think we'll have proof of that until 2028.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that's going to be the major, the major crystal ball, right? Or the major, proof point.
Yeah, I mean, the Obama era, I think, is over now.
No. He ended the Obama dynasty, the Bush dynasty. He ended a lot of.
But I'm talking about politically, like Obama's America. I think that's done. But the nail in the coffin will be 2028. But right now, I think that Obama's America is in the coffin, ready to be nailed. We'll see in 2028. But a lot of interesting things happened in this election, Mike. We did see the shift in minorities going towards Trump.
Sure.
Even with the constant, he's a racist, he's a racist, he's a racist.
I think you nailed it earlier when you said it. That's kind of lost its impact in this meeting now.
Yeah.
It's like white noise now. I think you're absolutely right. You made a point about it earlier, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it is. I think it is kind of like white noise now. And, 2020, Kamala didn't get, again, I think it was about 13 or 14 million less votes than Biden, right?
Something like that right now. Yeah, they're still counting some places, but yeah, it's about that number.
What nobody really thinks of or puts in perspective is, and I know the theories of 2020, but just if we just assume that everything was on the level, which we don't know, 2020 was unique because nobody had a life.
Yeah.
Everybody was home. right?
Yeah.
So you didn't have a life. People were following politics like they don't usually.
Well, yeah, because it was the American soap opera played out right before their very eyes.
Exactly. So everything from, watching your kids learn at school was now right in front of you.
Yeah.
All the things that were happening with BLM and everything was right in front of you.
Yeah.
You had no life. You weren't going out to a bar at night. You weren't going to work during the day. So you're absorbing all of this stuff. And a lot easier to vote, right? Because you got the
Everybody was mailing in,
now.
yeah.
And I don't,
Boxes.
those numbers were not numbers of support for Biden, I don't think, necessarily, because she would have gotten that too if it was support for those policies, right? Because Biden is
without doubt, yeah.
I just don't think we're ever going to see numbers like that again because people are back to their lives now.
Yeah, unless you had a similar circumstance where people were locked down like that again,
Right.
you wouldn't see those same kind of numbers. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think it comes back to an excellent point I've heard it said before.
What's that?
It's not so much that people were voting for her as they were against Trump.
A lot of people, I think, yeah.
And so I think it was a lot of it was not so much, excitement and energy for her as it was energy against Trump, because you go over the anti-Trump people or the people having these meltdowns on social media are saying, oh, he's going to take away our rights. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And it's like, well, no, he's not. But when you realize that they actually truly believe that, these people actually believe that he's going to take away their rights and everything, it makes you realize they weren't voting for Kamala. They were voting against him.
Yeah, and
So it really was his election.
But now a lot of people voted for him, right? And like I said before,
I think they passed the point of the fear. They got past that fear reaction they had.
well, and he was the incumbent in this race once Biden got out, and people remember 4 years ago. It's not ancient history, right? So remember I said to you, and I think you disagreed with me, but I said just as a view as a historian, I can't consider a president who doesn't get reelected or who loses reelection to be a great president because you have to convince a majority of the country that they want you back.
We're talking about, yeah.
Well, now he did.
Yeah.
All right. And now I think he does have a chance to become a great president. We'll see if he follows through. But that's what a reelection is. I was talking to you before about Thomas Jefferson's second inaugural.
Yes.
He actually said it. He said in that, he says that his reelection was quote unquote, new proof of confidence from my fellow citizens at large, that they have given him proof that they liked what he did and given him the permission to move forward and to continue doing what he was doing. So Trump now has a big job in front of him, right?
Yeah.
While I have this out, I thought that this was interesting. I told you about this before. Trump faced something that, look, every Republican has the mainstream media pretty much not on their side.
Yeah.
But this is different. I mean, they're hostile to him.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
So this is not just not on his side or favoring the other side or being a little biased. At large,
They're out.
the media is hostile to him.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No doubt.
Well, it's not new. Thomas Jefferson faced something like this too, and he brought it up in his second inaugural. It was very Trumpian. He went at the press. He said, during the course of my administration, and in order to disturb it, the artillery of the press has been leveled against me, charged with whatever its licentiousness could devise or dare. These abuses of this institution, so important to freedom and science, are to be deeply regretted, inasmuch as they tend to lessen its usefulness and to sap its safety. They were going after him. I mean, he's using words like artillery. He's using Trump words, right? Yeah. Artillery. They're gunning for him. But he's a little bit more confident than Trump because hopefully Trump realizes this now. Said, but public duties more urgent press upon the public servants, and the offenders, the press, have therefore been left to find their punishment in public indignation. In other words, he said, the press tried to do all of this crap to me. They lied, and they did, boy. I mean, because back then, remember, the press there was Democratic press, there was the party newspapers and pamphlets and so forth.
The pamphlets,
and he said the public is smart enough to know when something is bullshit. And their punishment, the press's punishment, is the public realizing this. And that's,
because
I think, what happened in this election.
Yeah, because you saw it in his reelection, right? The press was against him. He was still reelected.
Exactly.
Because the electorate understood that it was complete nonsense. And then again, in Trump's election, this time you see it again. The people wake up to the nonsense and the rhetoric, and they say, wait a minute, enough of that nonsense. Let's look at what's really going on. And he gets reelected by a large margin.
And I think that the press is starting to understand this, Mike. I brought up Maureen Dowd before. The entire Sunday Times opinion section today were all legitimate, introspective articles. You know, again, the idiots like Joe Scarborough and Joy Reid, and I see clips of that shit.
Those are clickbait people. Those are
them.
people
Those are
that
idiots.
Those are clickbait.
But the real ones are starting to understand.
Well, even like Politico. Politico had a bunch of articles, and like
About what?
Politico's far left, right? We're going to get far left. Politico's far left, but they had articles talking about the dissection and the autopsy of this campaign, and talking about introspection, and basically saying like, okay, where did we go wrong as a party, and making some pretty honest points in some of the articles. You know, they're not quite there yet. Don't get me wrong, folks, but they are definitely starting to see the light.
Look, where they went wrong, Mike, is they lost. Okay, and that's really all there is to it to me. You know, all of this stuff, the dissection, this and that. Look, normal, regular people don't want to hear that. You know, we have to worry about pronouns, and we have to, you know, they're worried about the price of their, and they don't want to hear even though, look, the basis of the economy is fine, right? The stock market is fine, the banking system is fine, GDP is fine, but that's not what people think about when they think about the economy.
No,
they think about how much is a dozen eggs? How much is it to fill my car? Am I getting a raise at work? So when the Democrats tone deafly tell people, oh, it's not that bad, nobody's going to vote for them.
Well, you know, it's like, you know, it's like picture you have a car accident, right? Big old car accident. But let's say the left side of the car is fine, but the right side of the car is destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. All ripped apart. If you're only looking at the left side of the car, to you it looks fine.
Exactly. That's a great
So
analogy.
perspective is it's all about perspective, right? And the problem that they have is that they don't want to see what they don't want to see,
Right.
And they wanted to kind of focus in. No, look at this side. Don't look over there. Look over here. But people aren't stupid. And when you do that to people, they get very upset very quickly, rightfully so, and you lose an election.
And that's what, listen, the only real political genius left in the Democratic Party that I know of is Bill Clinton, who knew, even in this election, and he even said it, you know, you can't be like Obama and start telling people they're voting the wrong way like he did with black men, right? You don't lecture.
That was a
You
huge
don't tell
misstep.
people the economy is good when they're telling you it isn't, even if technically, like I said, technically, yeah, the banking system is stable. You know, the GDP is good. That doesn't matter. When people are telling you that they can't afford to go to fucking Walmart.
Well, yeah, because 40% increase in grocery prices is significant, and people feel that very
And a
much so.
politician can't tell them they're wrong. You can't do that.
Well, the problem
and
is
expect
you
to win.
have, you know, and the contrast in that is so dramatic in that you've got these multimillionaire people in the public eye telling you, oh no, there's nothing wrong with the economy. You're a multimillionaire. You're not going to buy your own damn groceries. We all know that.
People on TV, they may not be multimillionaires, but they make a damn good living, right? I mean,
They're
Joe Scarborough,
well enough insulated.
they make a good
They're
living.
well enough insulated that they're not going to feel the effect of something like
Absolutely.
that. Whereas
But-
your average American is very much feeling the effect of that.
Yes. And Mike, listen, this was a landslide. Okay.
Without doubt, yeah.
This was not a Reagan-esque landslide. I'm not going to get over,
Well, no,
over
well,
my skis here.
the electoral vote. I mean, he didn't take 49 out of 50 states, so yeah.
No, and he didn't win by 10% in the popular vote and all of that. But
Right.
be that as it may, okay, this was as close to a mandate as you're going to get in modern times. I told you upstairs I read that 90% of the counties in America
Went red.
moved towards red.
Moved,
right? It's
moved
not
red,
that they
right? Not that they went red, but they moved to the right. Yes.
They moved to the right. That's a good way
Yes.
to put it. And again, I'm not exactly sure how to explain this, but every single state, Trump increased his share of the electorate in every single
State. Yep.
every single. Now that doesn't mean he didn't get blown out in California. He did. He got blown out in New York. He did. He got blown out by less. Is that important in the end? Probably not. But when you see it across the entire country, it says something.
Well, I think that's what they're talking about when the share of the electorate is that he lost by even less than he did last time.
Yes.
I mean, New York was a big jump. I mean, he still lost by a big number, but that
he cut it
big
in
number
half.
got cut in half.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cut it in half.
Yeah.
That's a huge gain,
Yes.
especially
Right.
in so-called deep blue New York, which if you look at the map, New York's really not that deep blue. It's just being carried by the city and certain parts of like Rochester, other areas like
Well,
that.
but that's where most of the people live. But yes, but even in New York
Urban,
City,
urban population center, that's what I'm trying to say.
urban, exactly.
But even in New York City, he carried way more of the vote than he ever did before.
He did, listen, and he carried somewhere in the upper 30s in New York City. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact number. That's a lot for a very, very liberal city, for a city that basically has no Republican Party.
Yeah.
You know, we basically have no Republican Party. But again, if it just happened in New York, I would say, so what? Who cares, right? Even if he cut the lead in California in half, Who cares? But when you see it across
the country.
again, facing the headwinds that man faced, from everything from his prosecutions to a hostile media, anybody out there who doesn't accept the fact that this election was won by Donald Trump, it was not lost by Kamala Harris. Everybody's got to stop with the "why did she lose," basically implying that she should have won.
No, she never had a chance.
No, she probably didn't. You know, I mean,
she had a 107-day campaign, point blank, right?
And look, she did as best as she could, I guess, under those circumstances.
I think she was the big lynch. I think she was the Achilles heel in that campaign, honestly. I think the campaign staff did the best they could. She was the Achilles heel.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think she's a very good candidate. I think the primary the first time around shows kind of how bad of a candidate she is.
Yeah.
Her whole political career is based upon, you know, we're not getting to this.
I know what you're going to say.
I'm not going to get into that.
We alluded to that on that other one. I felt like we should have edited it out.
Yeah, we're not going to go down that road. That's just too much.
And that was me that time. That was me.
It's just too much. I can't go there.
No, let it be. Listen,
I think her campaign staff, and I, you know, look, obviously I'm not Democrat or conservative, but I think her campaign staff deserves a lot of credit for the work they did. They worked their butts off.
Yeah, and look, just the fact that this was even close, they deserve credit. Well, in a way, close. But bottom line again, Mike, I'm sorry. Whether or not there was a Democratic primary, whether or not Joe Biden stayed in, went out, Trump won this election because Trump won this election. That's it. All those other things imply that the Democrats should have won. If only they'd have done it the right way. If only they'd have had a primary. If only they'd have tested Kamala instead of, throwing her. No, I don't think so, and we don't have any proof of that.
$1 billion plus at this race.
Yeah, exactly.
$1 billion plus.
Listen, she outraised him, and she was only and she was only in the race since July. So this whole nonsense as to why did she lose? What did the Democrats do wrong? What the Democrats did wrong is their policies. That's what they did wrong. America is not into this pronoun shit. America doesn't.
Children.
Right, and America doesn't want to pay $5 for a dozen eggs. The Democratic Party that used to be the party that opposed wars, opposed imperialism, was in favor of workers, has now become the party of corporate America, the military-industrial complex, and the party of identity politics. And that's why they lost.
And
not
that is
because
the
they did anything
toxic
wrong.
brew you can possibly have in an electorate. It's
right.
They are the most repulsive, toxic things that you can bring to the electorate and try and frame up as good things. Nobody believes that.
What did Trump
no
promise?
normal person.
Trump promised what Democrats always promise, right? Stopping wars.
Yeah.
Right? Stopping imperialism. Doing things for the working class. No tax on tips. No tax on
overtime.
These are things that Jimmy Carter would have said.
Well, listen, you got RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard on board with his campaign. That'll tell you right there exactly where the electorate is. Yep. The MAGA movement is not some right-wing conspiracy movement. It's not at all. The MAGA movement is a very, very big tent, and it represents everything from, empowering American workers to empowering American business to, utilizing Americans' natural resources and everything else to make the country stronger and more prosperous.
It's populism, right?
It's the reclamation of the American, it's a reclamation of the American, dream. It's a reclamation of the American experiment. It's saying, listen, this stuff obviously is toxic. It doesn't work. We're going to go this way and actually put things back to right again. You have RFK Jr. coming out, make America healthy again, get all the poison out of the food, get the FDA back to where it's supposed to be, doing its job, not advocating for whatever company's paying these guys or giving them jobs when they leave the FDA. And all his policy is exactly that. It's exactly about honesty, transparency, all the things the Democrat Party supposedly represented. He's actually pushing policy for. They use them as talking points. He's actually pushing policy for it.
Yes, and this is what Americans wanted, and I think Democrats should understand that. And listen, they can't change who they are as the basis of their party. No party should do that because you lose an election, right? But what Trump did for the Republicans is save them. Right? He took a party that was not talking to the middle class, that was not talking to working people, that not only would they not go into areas of the Bronx, but if they did, they would try to tell some single mom living in the Bronx that her life will be better if we cut taxes for the owners of corporations. Trump understood that the Republican Party can't win with that sort of a talk, right? So what does he do? He promises to save Social Security, not to destroy it, right? Not to change it. He promises to taxes for us. Listen, Mike, let's be honest. I don't know if I ever told you this. after the Bush tax cuts, the next year when I was getting my taxes prepared, I asked my tax preparer, I said, are these tax cuts going to be very helpful to me? I said, how much do you think will actually be the difference? And I'll never forget his answer. He said, you'll be lucky if it pays your phone bill.
Yeah,
Those were the days where we had a phone bill.
yeah.
We actually had a
I
big
still
phone.
have a phone, but
Yeah, not the cell phone where you pay,
Yeah, no, I still have a landline too, yeah.
So he said to me, he said, you'll be lucky. And he wasn't being a wise ass. He just said, you'll be lucky if it pays your phone bill.
Yeah, it was accurate. I
It
remember
really
that.
wasn't. And even the Trump tax cuts, if you look at your effective rate, it has not changed that much.
The Trump tax cut, I think at the time, ended up being for me something like maybe $40 a paycheck, so maybe about I was getting paid 2 weeks in, so about maybe $80 a month.
Again, your phone bill, right? But
Yeah.
when he's talking about no tax on tips,
Now you're talking something that's massive.
no tax on overtime. Imagine you as a cop not having to pay the tax on the overtime that you
Forget
get.
about it. Yeah.
That's a huge difference,
Massive,
right? That's money
massive
in
numbers.
your pocket. Now, whether he gets this done or not, we're going to talk in our next video, but those are things that actually appeal to people. I'll say it again for the last time. Trump won because Trump won. That's
Yeah.
it. He won
We said
because he
this.
won.
Remember, we said this in an earlier video. I think we both said it at one point or another. This is his race to win or lose.
Yeah.
Right? We both said that. We both felt like he was going to win. We both definitely leaned in that direction, and we actually in our
It's on
predictions,
video. Our predictions were pretty close.
we actually got very very close. I think we pretty much we got right in there.
You got closer to me. I didn't think he was going to win Nevada, but the one I got better than you is I said he'll win Georgia comfortably. You said you think it's going to be razor thin. So we were kind of
Yeah, I thought he would have a hard time with Georgia. I did. I thought he would have a hard time getting Georgia, but they came out for him. They really did.
Mike, we knew at 2 a.m. that he was winning. All the press was saying, oh, it's going to be weeks before we know. It's going to be weeks. Remember that?
Yeah, but by the end of the night, you already know. You already know.
Anyway, so what do you guys think of this election? I don't know.
Give us your thoughts. Let us know what you saw, what you think. Did you think Harris ran a good campaign? Do you think she had too little time to run it? What do you think? Let us know what your thoughts on both sides of this.
I mean, I don't think
And,
any of that makes a difference. I think Trump won this election. I'll say it again, because Trump fucking won. The media's got to get over this shit. He won because he was able to convince a majority of Americans to
His
trust
plan
him.
is better.
That's it. That's all there is to
But
it.
he really did have a better plan. She had no plan. She had no policy, no plan, and he came back with a very strong, solid plan.
Fine.
So
Whatever it is, he won because he won.
tell us what you think. Let us know how you feel. Let us know what's going on, and definitely tune in for the next one. We talk about Trump's second administration, what it may look like, and what we expect to see, and kind of how it might play out.
Yep. And just as a little teaser, he came out and said point blank, Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo will not be part of my administration. Thank you, Donald.
We already voted for you, but thank you for the extra gift.
Thank you.
All right, that was like
Thank
an
you.
extra bonus.
Because now at least I have confidence that you're actually going to try to follow through with what you said about foreign policy.
Oh, I think so, without a doubt. I do. We'll talk about it in the next video, guys. All right.
We're going to change
Listen.
our clothes and pretend like it's another day.
Listen, do us a favor. Like the video, subscribe, share the video on your social media, tell your
Comment.
friends about it.
Down there.
Help us increase these viewer numbers, help us grow this channel so we can get this conversation going across the country.
Make America great again.
That's right.